Beth Macy traced the opioid epidemic from the early days in rural America to the nationwide crisis that it is today in her best-selling book, Dopesick: Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America. It was adapted into the critically acclaimed Hulu miniseries, Dopesick, about how members of the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma allegedly sparked the opioid epidemic with the drug OxyContin. Here is a look.
If OxyContin does what I think it can, it could soon become Purdue's first billion-dollar drug.
Purdue continues to lie about the drug's safety to doctors, to patients, and the FDA. We have a major case here.
She is now turning the lens to the fight for justice for those affected in her new book, Raising Lazarus: Hope, Justice, and the Future of America's Overdose Crisis. With me now, Beth Macy, author of Raising Lazarus. Beth, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see you and this very important work. So congratulations on its completion. I imagine it was a very emotional book to work on.
It was, but in a lot of ways, it was more hopeful than Dopesick. My first book ended with, in tragedy, with a family that I'd gotten really close to, and the young woman that I'd been tracking for 2 years was murdered. And it was a story of a person being denied access to care. And so in this book, like 2/3 of the book is about the helpers and the people who are innovating treatments so that we can turn this back.
So in some ways, this book is a continuation of the conversation that you started, so to speak, in the first book.
Absolutely. The young woman that I was mentioning early, Tess Henry, described how she had been overprescribed OxyContin and other opioids at an urgent care center. And in 2015, she said, we need urgent care for the addicted. But she didn't really know what that looked like. And I didn't really either, because it didn't exist. And so this book, Raising Lazarus, is really about answering the question, what is urgent care for the addicted, and how do we get it to the 7 million people with opioid use disorder?
Some of the personal narratives that you get into, one includes James Stroud, who is a former banker. What can you tell us about how he's doing today and how his story informed your overall work?
One of the cool things that James did, he and Wendy Odom, they started a needle exchange in a community that had the highest rate of overdose in the nation, Surrey County, home of Mayberry, Andy Griffith's show, which they're very proud of, but they weren't really proud of having this high overdose rate. And then they made inroads with local law enforcement such that some of them began diverting people from jail and into treatment. And in the book, I love the story of Billy Campbell, who I first meet with James in a trap house. She's dealing, selling drugs, but she's also passing out clean needles because she knows that's helping her community. She gets arrested a couple weeks later, and then for the first time in her adult life, she gets diverted to treatment instead of jail. And I saw her this week. She was at my book launch. She's been sober for 15 months.
That's amazing.
It was so moving.
And even James as well. I mean, you document very well in the book, he was, for more than a decade, addicted to opioids and addicted to meth. I mean, he really had a very serious struggle.
Absolutely. And like many of the helpers, he had a relapse during COVID. It was really, really stressful on the peers, the peer recovery specialists, people in recovery. So I mean, just... It's a weird thing that the people who are best equipped to help other people get into recovery are also vulnerable to relapse themselves. But a lot of people will tell you this work is what keeps me sober.
I just want to ask you on a more personal note, if that's okay. You said something to the extent where you wrote this in your book. If you had not gone to college, you could have seen yourself being featured in a book like this. Why did you write that?
Well, I think I've always written about outsiders and underdogs, and I'm from a small town in Ohio that's very much like the distressed former factory towns that I chronicled in my first book, Factory Man. And at the end of Factory Man, which published in 2014, the little towns I was chronicling there, which had had half of their industry go away, were then starting to be the first communities to really struggle with heroin. I think one of the reasons I like to tell these stories is I think this is a group, rural America has just really been left behind. People who live in the cities don't really know how bad it is in some of the places. And that's why it's so important that we've got to start to fix this treatment gap, because like in Surrey County, for instance, they couldn't fill the job openings. They can't fill the job openings they have because not enough people can pass a drug test. So it's really important to our economics as well.
Yeah, another whole layer. Beth Macy, thank you so much for coming in. Raising Lazarus, Hope, Justice, and the Future of America's Overdose Crisis is now available wherever books are sold.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.